Hi everyone, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I wanted to come on and restart my Copic coloring series, and I've decided to re-color up this cute little bear cub from the Some Odd Girl Winter Friends stamp set. But rather than create another polar bear, I thought I would color up this as a little brown bear using some no-line coloring. So I've stamped out the image with Momento Desert Sand ink. And if you recall from the last time I colored up this image, I picked out this image from Google Images and I marked in where the shadows would be. I just happened to find this little bear image that was very similar to the stamped image, and that helps mark all the shadowed areas. So I'm starting with a mid-tone brown. This is an E57 and I'm marking in all of the shadowed areas. So it basically immediately covers up all of the stamped lines, and I can mark in kind of on an experimental basis where I think the shadows will be. And I say it's kind of on an experimental basis because I know I have yet an even darker brown that I plan to use. And so if I've made a mistake somewhere along the line and I haven't marked in the shaded areas correctly, or I've overmark them, I know that I have more darker browns to kind of hide any imperfections in terms of my shadow placement. And what I'm doing here, as you can see, is using tiny little flick marks. I'm not doing long strokes. I want this bear's fur to look, like little furry texture. And I'm marking in all the shadowed areas, like at the base of the ears, the inside of the ears, at the top of the muzzle, the cast shadow from the little bear's face, on the back sides of those legs. And you can see I'm trying to basically mimic the shadow marked areas on the Google image. And now I've taken the next lightest color. This is an E53. And I'm extending the shadowed areas with this slightly lighter color. And it starts to already show kind of a connection on how to create a rounded effect on the bear. You can see on the left side of the image, I'm making the shadowed areas a little bit larger than on the right side. And I am extending all of those kind of mid-tone darker browns with this kind of lighter brown, and I'm trying to connect to the areas that will be the lightest, almost white but not quite. Now I'm going in with the next lightest color. This is an E53, and I'm again extending the lines a little bit further. I am making sure that I'm trying to connect the next lightest brown color to the areas that are more highlighted. I'm trying to create a rounded look on each of the legs, the top of the tail, the top of the forehead. And this is a little bit tricky because you've got hair or fur kind of growing up the forehead, but you also have fur kind of going around the edges, turned down a little bit on the sides of the face. And with short little brush strokes like this, sometimes it's hard to get a rounded look. But you just take your time and build up layer after layer of color. Now I'm doing the lightest shade. I'm using an E51, which oftentimes people use for face coloring for people. And I wanted to try and just add as much highlight as possible before adding my darker shades. Now this is an E59, and I finally brought in the camera a little bit closer so you can see more of the detail. And I'm coloring in the nose with that E59 and E57. And now I'm marking in the darkest shadows again, like underneath the mouth, on the left or right side of the bear, or the left side of the image, of the muzzle. Again, the top of the muzzle where the muzzle kind of meets the forehead, because that would be kind of a corner. And that kind of shape isn't actually in the stamped image. It's one that I'm just creating with this coloring. And I'm going back in, marking in the darkest areas like the base of the ears, inside the ears, on the far side away from the brightest area because I'm imagining that the light source is coming from the upper right. The cast shadow of the little bear's face onto his back. All of those areas are getting the darkest shadow. And as I've said repeatedly in my Copic coloring videos, having that full breadth of a range of tones is really important to creating a realistic, rounded, three-dimensional look. The fact that I went all the way from E51 to E59, and I think I even go to E79 for super dark brown, really helps create a three-dimensional look to the bear. I'm going back in and coloring in where the bottom side of the belly of the bear is, the hind leg that's definitely going to be in shadow cast from the body of the bear, the back sides of each of the legs, where the leg meets the body, where the foot meets the leg, those inside creases will all get this darkest shadowed coloring. Sorry, I'm covering it up as I'm coloring, but basically I'm just going through and marking in those deep crevices in the image. And you'll see me kind of going back and forth, working in areas that might already look like they've got, some shading, but I'm doing that because I'm trying to connect the darkest areas with the next lightest color and so on and so forth. So after I finish with like this darkest brown, I'm going to go to the next darkest, so a little bit lighter, and try to connect and bridge those two colors and extend the fur coloring. And you can see me emphasizing much more of this coloring on the right side of the bear or the left side of the image if you're looking at it straight on. And I'm doing that to re-emphasize that the side away from the light source is going to have much more shadowed dark areas. And that's really it. I'm going to go and work back and forth. So I started from the beginning of the image with a mid-tone, kind of darker middle tone, worked all the way to the lightest browns, and then I kind of restarted with an even darker brown because I knew I had that leeway to go even darker when I was first experimenting on where I would place the shadows. And then again, I'm going all the way down to the lightest color. So I start kind of in the middle range of tones, go all the way light, and then go all the way to the darkest tones and go all the way light. And that really will help create the full range of coloring that will keep the image looking realistic and 3D. Now you see me switching out and I'm going again to the next lightest color. This is the E55. And all along you see that I'm coloring not, in circle motions, not in long swooshing detailed lines or strokes. I'm using super quick flicking motions, and that really helps create that furry texture. And I will admit that I really have a heavy hand in terms of my coloring. I had initially started thinking I was going to color this bear kind of a lighter brown, but the more I go back and forth with all of my inks, the darker the bear gets. And that's okay. It's just the way I happen to color. And I will say that little furry critters like this bear are really forgiving. You can build up layer after layer of color, and there are really no mistakes. Just use that flicking motion, use the full range of colors, dark to light and back and forth, to build up that texture and the three-dimensionality. And there you go. You're going to end up with a cute, cuddly, furry critter, and it'll come out adorable, I promise. Now, for this image, I already had kind of a card planned in my mind. So I'm going to actually add in a couple of pictures of the finished card that I use this no-line colored little bear cub on. This is for a special friend of mine who's been going through some really tough times, and true to form, this sweet friend of mine, while she's packing up her home, came across a book that she thought would be helpful to me. So she actually took time out to package it up and mail it to me. Sweet thing. And I just wanted to send her this special card. And really, this is all there is to the Copic coloring. So let me describe to you what I did for the card. I created a very dark base that's kind of a silhouette base, and then kind of a starry, warm summer night, galaxy or starry night background. And I did that with Copic markers and blending on some distress inks and flicking on water and Copic opaque white to add a little sparkle. I also added some icicle stickles, and to add some lifelike shine to the little bear's eyes and nose, I added some glossy accents. If you're interested in the details of how I created the background, please check out my blog post, which I will link to below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks a lot, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.